gavel actually required?
No.
You could just do
But
that.
she's getting it.
Or people just really like gavels, huh?
Well, you can hear it on the tape.
Okay, it's her self-defense.
You can hear it on the tape, and sometimes the chair needs it.
All right, okay, all right. So do I whack first and then announce? Okay, all right.
Are you ready?
All right. I call this Board of Education special meeting work session of Tuesday, June 23rd to order. April, will you call the roll?
Ms. Byer,
Here.
Mrs. Danick,
Here.
Mrs. Duncan,
Here.
Mr. Mayhew,
Present.
Ms. Mumgard,
Here.
Dr. Rauner,
Here.
Mr. Boswell.
Present.
I'll announce the Open Meeting Act, which is posted in the vestibule back there on the wall. I'll turn over the budget discussion first to Kathy Danick.
Thank you, Dr. Rauner. Tonight is our formal work session on the 2020-21 budget. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Standish. She has a short presentation, and then it's open for board member questions.
Good evening. We're excited to be here tonight for what is our first work session in a series of activities related to the 2020-2021 budget. This is a preliminary proposed budget. Our goal is to work throughout the summer with public forums that we'll talk about to move towards what would be a proposed budget to put forward to you later in the summer. So we'll take a look at the budget calendar, kind of an overview of our process. Uniquely, as all things right now in our world, we're going to talk a little bit about the pandemic impact in the budget planning. And we're going to review our revenue information, our expenditure information, and save plenty of time for questions and answers from all of you. So first, I think this might be one of the only calendars that has not changed as a result of the pandemic. So our work sessions fell on regular board meeting days. So you can see we're currently at June 23rd for our work session. We are doing something a little bit different. So tomorrow night we'll be right back here for what would be a more traditional public forum. We invite the community to join us. We'll do a brief presentation, and then we'll have time for public input. But then we'll be using our virtual webinar format to do a budget forum with the community online on Thursday at 7 p.m. We already have scheduled at least one community presentation, and we welcome community presentations. I would prefer, I'll take my mask and I'll go present anywhere anybody would like for me to go. So feel free to contact our office if any community groups would like a budget presentation. We'll be back here on July 28th in front of what is a regularly scheduled board meeting. And that's when we will move beyond. Tonight, our focus is on the general fund. That's when we move to include the whole look of all funds. We'll also blend in ESU, so we'll have the full funds budget, and we'll keep moving towards that publication for the hearing. One other change is our public hearing for the budget is on a Monday night before a Tuesday board meeting. In state statute, they wanted to make sure public hearings for budgets did not have an end, so the public did not perceive that there was a fixed amount of time. So we moved that so it's no longer in front of a board meeting, so that can be an open-ended meeting on August 24th. And then we have the budget before you for first reading the end of August with adoption early September. That will also give us an opportunity to look at assessed valuation as that gets finalized as we walk through this process. So in Lincoln Public Schools, we have a repeatable, predictable, steady process for how we develop the budget. Typically in the fall, enrollment impacts our budget a lot. So that would start taking us through ideas related to updating the forecast. Updating the forecast is very important in years that we're going into negotiations in the winter months. So the Finance Committee is very heavily involved. In years like this year, where we're in the second year of an agreement, the forecast then gets updated throughout the winter because we're not currently negotiating. The more information we get from NDE and state aid modeling and the legislature, the more fine-tuned we can get with that forecast. We did have state aid pushed back. So we did not receive state aid until late April, where normally that would have a March 1 deadline. And then we received assessed valuation right around April 20th, which is when we traditionally get that first look at what an estimate of assessed valuation might be. That is not the official certified valuation. Work with the finance committee, exec committee, board one-on-ones, and we bring to you at the work session kind of a preliminary proposed budget for all of us to take out to the community for consideration and feedback. So then that walks us through those final steps in the process that I reviewed on the previous slide. This budget does face many challenges. It's been a challenging budget to put together. The first major challenge was a $20 million drop in state aid. So that was a significant decline in our revenue, and that was something that we were factoring into this budget. In addition, we looked at the 3-year forecast and had to do our very best to create some models that would attempt to look at the impact from the pandemic. So what do we think may happen with revenue next year, throughout the rest of this year, and into future years as a result of the pandemic? We had to put that into our forecast as typical. Typically, we would have the circumstance we're in where our valuations went up, our state aid went down, and then the next year we would expect our state aid to come back up and our valuations to come back up. So putting the pandemic into that model created even more challenges for this budget to overcome. The preliminary budget, as always, we are using our 3-year forecast just like we always do. It's a system we use that's a longstanding system in Lincoln Public Schools. It's meant to really emphasize that long-range planning, sustainability, and we had a theme or a focus on keeping reductions as far away from the classroom as possible. We also want to highlight that this budget, though it does have significant reductions in it, does not eliminate like an entire program. So at this point, we were able to make reductions without reducing a whole program that's serving students. We also did not have to initiate a process called a reduction in force. Through reduction in force would be where we would communicate with staff early in the spring that they would not have a position with Lincoln Public Schools. So the reductions that you're going to see in this budget are FTE reductions through attrition, so a position to fill that position. One of the best examples would be maybe we had a 4th grade teacher at an elementary school whose family was moving out of state. So that elementary teacher was said to us they were departing from the district, and maybe that school had an opportunity with section sizes to bring it down a section, and so we were able to attrition out that position. So when we look at our budget, one thing to think about is we actually build 2 budgets. We build the expenditure budget and we build the revenue budget. And the revenue budget is built with a forecast of what we think the revenue is going to be the next year. Some of that revenue is certified to us, such as state aid, such as property values, but some of that is based on trends and just using trending and modeling. So when we start to look at the impact from the pandemic, that's where you really start to see that modeling become a little bit challenging. Because we do not have we've had the 3-year forecast for decades, but those decades do not include a pandemic. So we've been working really hard to give our best thinking around how to model this out. So we do know that in the 1920 school year, we will see possibly some savings related to utilities, substitutes, supplies, maybe fuel for buses. In your monthly financial report tonight, actually is complete through May. Our expenditures are tracking percentage-wise similar to the previous year, but we also have access to CARES Act funding, and that would not represent any movement to CARES Act funding yet. So we have not seen like a major drop in expenditures. That's predominantly because we did continue to pay staff and keep staff on call throughout the pandemic. So we could see some impact on expenditures. We also know that we definitely have additional expenses. So there was remote learning with hotspots and materials for students. Those are eligible for CARES Act funds. As we're looking forward to next year, there's items even on your agenda tonight that are purchases that we will need next year that we wouldn't normally need if there wasn't a pandemic. We purchased Chromebook laptops, anticipating that maybe the Chromebooks will need to be Chromebook bags for students, not laptops, for students at the elementary level who traditionally have not taken those devices home, so that we're more prepared for devices to be a little bit more mobile and able to go back and forth. And so we know we have some known costs in 1920. We have some things we're preparing for 2021. I will share with you, I'm a very strong advocate that we also need to keep resources available for the 2021 school year, because we do not know what 2021 will bring. And so we need to be prepared and have some resources to be able to address what might come. So the impact we are currently seeing, if you look at our financial statements this month compared to a year ago, is on those other local revenues is the line where we're about 10% behind